The Aurora 7 spacecraft is on a reconnaissance mission to a moon of the planet J7, located in a remote solar system. The crew, composed of scientists, biologists, and engineers, is in the final stages of exploration, with the spacecraft sensors indicating that the lunar terrain is arid and uninhabitable. After weeks of fruitless exploration, the sensors detect something unusual. A weak biological signal that should not exist in such a hostile environment. Driven by scientific curiosity and exploratory instinct, the team decides to investigate the source of this signal by collecting samples from the surface of the moon. In the ship's laboratory, Chief Biologist Dr. Emily Carter leads the analysis of the samples. Amidst rocks and dust, they find small structures that resemble fungal spores. What should be impossible, biological life on a celestial body with no atmosphere, turns out to be a scientific enigma. At night, while everyone is resting, something unexpected happens. The security sensors detect movement in the laboratory. The samples begin to show signs of active life, expanding rapidly inside the containment capsules. An alarm sounds throughout the ship. Security systems begin to fail, indicating a serious failure. Something is taking control, but no one knows what it is yet. With the alarm sounded, the team rushes to the lab, where they come across a frightening scene. The spores are growing rapidly, and inexplicably, the fungus is spreading across metal and technological surfaces. Ethan, the systems engineer, tries to contain the fungus's expansion, but notices that it is infiltrating the ship's electrical systems. The alien fungus appears to be feeding on the ship's energy, gradually compromising the functioning of the main systems. As they investigate, engineer Sarah approaches the pods for a closer look, but when she touches the outer surface of one of the containment pods, part of her suit becomes contaminated. The fungus attaches itself to her suit and begins to eat away at it rapidly. Chaos ensues as she screams for help. The crew rushes her to the medical bay, where they attempt to remove the fungus with chemicals, but discover that it is resistant to all of the chemicals they have. The crew must isolate sections of the ship to contain the contamination. They now know they are dealing with an alien life form that can grow exponentially, and they need to act quickly before the entire ship's systems are compromised. After hours of tension, it seems that the fungus has been contained, but the sense of security is short-lived. During the early hours of the morning, Dr. Blake, the crew's leading molecular biologist, mysteriously disappears. None of the crew have seen him since the initial containment of the fungus. Panic sets in among the crew, and Captain Maya Hudson orders a search of every sector of the ship. Upon examining the surveillance data, they realize that Dr. Blake has left the lab in a hurry, taking with him a wealth of equipment and research data on the fungi. A series of notes found on his terminal suggests that he has made a crucial discovery. The spores are not just simple organisms, but possess a highly complex structure, suggesting that they may be more than just fungi, a life form with some level of intelligence. The last camera footage shows Dr. Blake walking alone towards the cargo bay, but when they review the slow-motion footage, they realize he was not alone. Someone or something was following him in the shadows. With no trace of Dr. Blake, the crew turns their attention to analyzing the fungus's behavior. Ethan discovers something terrifying. The fungus's growth is not random. It appears to be expanding strategically, first taking over secondary control systems and now moving closer to primary life support systems. The crew begins to suspect that they are dealing not just with a biological plague, but with something that may possess a collective consciousness. As the chaos unfolds, Dr. Emily proposes a shocking hypothesis. The spores are reacting to the ship's systems as if they were part of a neural network, similar to what Earth's fungi do when creating underground communication networks. This raises a disturbing question. Could the spores be an intelligent life form trying to communicate with them? The crew must find a way to stop the fungus from spreading through the ship's life support systems before it's too late, but at the same time, they must figure out how to communicate with this possible alien life form. Tensions rise when Lucas, the maintenance technician, is found dead in one of the ship's corridors. His body is covered in a thin layer of fungus, and the doctors on board observe, horrified, that the fungus appears to be feeding on his bodily fluids, growing and expanding from the corpse. The crew panics, realizing that the fungus not only contaminates the ship, but also directly attacks living beings. Dr. Emily tries to understand what happened to Lucas's body. When studying the samples taken from his corpse, she makes a shocking discovery. The fungus not only feeds on organic matter, but also appears to genetically modify its victims, inserting new DNA patterns. This suggests that the fungus may be trying to create something new from human bodies. The team, already frightened, begins to discuss the possibility of aborting the mission and destroying the ship to prevent the fungus from spreading to other parts of the galaxy. Meanwhile, sensors pick up a new signal coming from the moon. Something is emerging from the surface, and it appears to be directly related to the fungus. The crew has barely recovered from Lucas's death when something even stranger happens. A signal of unknown origin is picked up by the ship's communication systems. The transmission is composed of noise and electromagnetic pulses that at first glance seem chaotic. However, upon closer examination, Ethan and Dr. Emily realize that there is a pattern. The message is not just noise, but an attempt at communication. They deduce that the fungus is part of a larger communication network, possibly an alien civilization that uses these spores to send signals through space. As they try to decipher the message, Captain Hudson becomes increasingly concerned. The fungus is advancing rapidly, now compromising the oxygen and power systems. A decision needs to be made quickly. The crew is divided. Some believe they should continue to study the phenomenon, while others, terrified, want to destroy what is left of the ship and flee. Time is of the essence. If they fail to understand the nature of the fungus and its connection to the transmission, the ship will be taken over and everyone will be doomed. Ethan races against the clock to decipher the transmission code as the fungus begins to invade key sectors. At the last moment, a fragment of the transmission is deciphered, revealing an alarming phrase: "We are the link between the stars." As Ethan and Dr. Emily attempt to decipher more of the alien transmission, the ship begins to experience serious structural problems caused by the relentless advance of the fungus. While delving into the ship's files, Ethan makes a shocking discovery. Classified documents indicate that the Aurora 7 mission was planned to investigate signs of alien biological activity. Someone on the crew knew about the spores before they even arrived on the moon of J7. The revelation of a possible internal conspiracy further shakes the crew's confidence. Captain Maya Hudson faces a crisis of authority when members begin accusing each other of being agents of a secret mission with hidden agendas. Paranoia grows and chaos ensues. Dr. Blake's disappearance is now seen in a new light. Perhaps he knew too much or was involved in something much bigger. Maya must control the crew before the distrust between them becomes a greater threat than the fungus. She orders a thorough search of the ship to find the traitor, while Dr. Emily traz, no meio da busca. Dos tripulantes encontra uma câmara secreta na nave com equipamentos avançados de pesquisa biológica e a identidade do traidor começa a se revelar. Time is running out. The fungus has spread to most of the ship's life support systems, rendering many sectors uninhabitable. Even so, Dr. Emily E. Ithando. As they try to understand the true nature of the spores, Sarah, who was previously infected, begins to show symptoms of physical transformation. The fungus has begun to alter her biology irreversibly. She becomes a kind of human fungal hybrid with increased capabilities but also no control over her body. The fungus is invading not only the ship's systems but also the minds of the crew. Dr. Blake is finally found, but in a trance-like state, apparently connected to the fungus in some way. He reveals that the fungus is not an enemy, but a means of communication from a higher intelligence that exists beyond space and time. The crew now faces a moral dilemma: fight the fungus and risk losing more lives, or try to connect with it to understand its true nature. As the crew discusses their next move, sensors pick up a massive movement coming from the moon. Something gigantic is emerging from the surface, controlled by the spores. With the ship on the brink of total collapse and the crew on the brink of madness, Captain Hudson decides there is no other option but to evacuate the ship and destroy it to contain the fungus. However, Dr. Emily believes the answer lies in the contaminated samples and the spores themselves. She proposes a risky idea, using Sarah's own body, which is transforming into a hybrid, as a communication tool with the alien entity. Sarah, struggling with the fungus's invasion of her mind, agrees to the plan, knowing that her own life is at stake. While Dr. Emily tries to synthesize a cure for the fungus's effects, Ethan and Captain Hudson work to prepare for the evacuation of the ship. However, before they can begin their destruction, Sarah makes a willing sacrifice, giving herself over to the fungus and allowing it to completely take over her body. She believes this is the only way she can communicate directly with the fungus's collective consciousness and get answers. Sarah's sacrifice triggers a massive reaction in the fungus. The crew must decide: destroy her along with the ship, or allow her to fully bond with the alien entity. A mysterious signal emits from the surface of the moon at the exact moment Sarah fully transforms. Something begins to respond, coming from far away in space. With Sarah now fully fused with the fungus, the crew receives a clear message for the first time. The alien intelligence, communicating through the fungus, reveals its nature. It is a galaxy-spanning network of consciousness, using spores as a means of propagating and evolving through different life forms. What appeared to be a plague was, in fact, the ship is now at the mercy of this alien consciousness, and Dr. Emily descobre a verdade devastadora. Se o fungo não for detido, ele se expandirá para além da nave, infectando outros sistemas e planetas. No entanto, destruir o fungo significaria perder toda e qualquer chance de entender essa rede cósmica de inteligência. Captain Hudson meets. The team has only minutes to act before the ship is completely overrun. Dr. Emily and Ethan race against the clock to find a way to deactivate the fungus, while Captain Hudson arms the self-destruct systems. At the last moment, Sarah, now connected to the alien network, interferes. She tries to convince the crew that merging with the fungus is inevitable and that resistance is futile. But before she can conclude her argument, Captain Hudson makes a drastic decision. She activates the self-destruct system. Aurora 7 is consumed in a massive explosion, destroying both the ship and the fungus. However, a small escape pod carrying Dr. Emily, Ethan, and Captain Hudson is ejected seconds before destruction. As they float in space, awaiting rescue, a final message appears on the capsule systems. We will meet again. The bond will never be broken. The fungus may have been destroyed, but the alien entity is still there, watching.